can I do to stop gossiping? I've talked about someone who thinks of me as a close friend behind their back. Two people actually. Anytime someone asks me about that person, their secrets come pouring out. Hi, you guys, welcome to Ife Talks, the place where we talk about issues peculiar to you and give real life answers to your real life questions. Let's jump in. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ife Talks. So in the previous episodes, we explored validation, influence, and how that affects your self-esteem. So today we're exploring saying no and how this affects your self-esteem. Right? As a teenager, as a younger adult, you must develop the ability, the muscle of saying no very, very early on. Right? Say no to things that make you uncomfortable. Say no to people that want you to do the wrong things. Say no to situations that you don't want to be in. Develop that ability, right? That capacity to say no. In fact, the more you say no, the easier it is for you to say no, right? So, there's that feeling of guilt, that feeling of, am I hurting this person? Am I upsetting this person? When you say no to some situations, the more you say no over time, right, you'd be able to exercise that muscle more, right? Why are you saying no? There's some situations that call for you to say no. I'm not saying that everything that anybody asks you, right, your default answer is no. Of course, you're a cognitive person, you're an intellectual, you're somebody that is intelligent, right? So you know how to discern, between when you should say no or when you should say yes, right? But for the situations that call for you to say no, please know how to say that no with your full chest, right? Somebody calls you ugly in class, you can tell the person, no, I'm not. Somebody calls you or tells you that, oh, let's go and do this, let's go and do something that involves breaking the law in school, let's go and do something that involves stripping the esteem of somebody else, right? For example, now somebody calls you and says, oh, let's go and pick on that person, or you're in a place where they're picking on somebody. Be able to be that person that says, no, you shouldn't do that, no, you can't do that to another person, right? What this does to your self-esteem, let me use the example of what we said when I said somebody calls you ugly and you say no, you're not, right? What this does to your self-esteem is that over time, because you have rejected information that is false coming from somebody else, even if subconsciously somehow, right, your mind wants to bring it up by mistake, your subconscious will reject it almost immediately. Why? Because when that information was presented to you at face value, when that information was presented to you just by somebody else, right, you rejected it and you said no. So when you say no to situations that are uncomfortable, you are training your mind, you are training yourself on the things that you should reject. You are training your mind, you are training yourself on the situations that you know you should not be in, right? On the places that you know you should not go, on the people you should not be with, right? So the more you say no to situations that are uncomfortable, the more you say no to things that you don't like, right? It helps you speak up. For example, now you're in class, somebody wants to take your book, somebody wants to, and then, or maybe somebody will already take your book. You know how they behave now, they'll take your book, they'll not run off with it. You'll be like, bring my book, right? Or somebody wants to take something and you need it. A teacher has told you to copy a note, right? The teacher has told you that, oh, everybody, the whole class is going to submit by this, right? And then somebody at that point now wants you to borrow them your notes, right? Of course, you can't borrow them. I mean, you might want to feel bad that, oh, if I don't give the person my note now, the person will now not be able to copy their notes. You have to learn to say no without feeling that guilt. Why? Because it would be to your own detriment. Of course, there is a place where you can do things within the compass of love, which is one of the things I said in the previous episode. Please, if you have not watched that episode, please go back. I spoke about First Corinthians chapter 13 from verses 4 to 7, right? And I listed some of the qualities of what love does, right? Love is patient, love is kind. Of course, there is that place, but you also need to know how to say no to uncomfortable situations. Don't get yourself roped in situations that are not compatible with you because you're thinking of how the other person is going to feel. How are you going to feel? How does that make you feel? Because remember, the more things you allow to yourself, right, you're training your mind on how to see yourself. So the more negative things you allow to yourself, you allow people bully you. You allow people say the wrong things to you, and then you go back, you internalize it, you write it in your journal. Oh, this person called me this. Oh, this person called me that. You are going over it over and over again. The mind does not have any other place to draw information on how to see yourself. It's to draw information on those wrong things. So saying no to situations that are incompatible with how you would want to feel, saying no to uncomfortable situations would help train your mind, would help you know, would help your subconscious know on how you should see yourself. And then the more you do this, the more it is better for your self-esteem. Thank you for tuning into the another episode of Effect Talks. So we have another question from one of you here today. It says, what can I do to stop gossiping? I've talked about someone who thinks of me as a close friend behind their back. Two people actually. Anytime someone asks me about that person, their secrets come pouring out. I'm glad that you asked this question, and you'd be surprised to know gossiping is not something that is even peculiar to teenagers or younger adults. I believe that a lot of adults also somewhat struggle with this concept of gossiping. Right now, I'd like to give you a response and what you can do about it. I want you to see, first of all, that gossiping as a Christian is not something that just naturally comes from you, right? The only things that come naturally from you as a Christian, as someone that has the Holy Spirit on the inside of them, are the fruits of the Spirit, right? The Spirit of God is on the inside of you, and as such, the fruits are what shows. What are the fruits of the Spirit? We have love, we have joy, we have peace, we have self-control. All of them, they are 9 in total, right? So that those are the things that come naturally from a Christian. Things like gossiping are not things that come naturally from you. I'm saying this to say that you can exercise self-control over gossiping. Gossiping is when you're making rude remarks, or when you're talking about somebody when they're not there, or when you're telling a story about somebody that usually is untrue, or even if it's true, right? It's not painting that person in a good light. It's not something that you'd be able to say to that person's face, or it's not something that you'd be able to say. It's not a conversation that you'd be able to have when that person is there, right? So first and foremost, I want you to see that gossiping is not something that is naturally of you. It's not something that, you said that your friend, when people ask you about your friend, right, the secrets just come pouring out. No, right? Love is kind. Why am I bringing love is kind into this, right? If somebody has told you something in confidence, because of the love nature that is on the inside of you, which is kind, it is you that can keep that secret for that person, right? It is in your kind nature to keep the secret of that person, right? Now, going back to how gossiping is not something that just flows naturally from you, because of the fruits of the spirit that are on the inside of you, which one of them is self-control. You can always exercise self-control on your mouth. It is your mouth usually, more often than not, or if you are writing the gossip, which is far-fetched, or maybe you're putting it online, or if you're typing it, right? It is your mouth or your hands that do these things for you, and you can exercise self-control over them. So if it seems like sometimes, somebody asks you about your friends, somebody asks you about something that they heard about your friend, or maybe the person is not even your friend, maybe the person just told you that thing in confidence, you can always tell yourself that I can exercise self-control over this. So what's your take home? What's your to do from this, right? You can always tell yourself, I will exercise self-control. I can exercise self-control. Self-control flows naturally from me. Why? Because you are a Christian. What does that mean? Because you're a Christian, the Spirit of God indwells you. The Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, is on the inside of you. And a result, a fruit of that is that you're able to exercise self control. I